I never thought 5 simple words could hollow out a person from the inside. But that's exactly what happened when Emma looked at me across that cafe table and said, "I don't want this with you." Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was worse, calm, certain, almost kind. That's the tone people use when they've already made peace with walking away. I sat there staring at the steam rising from my untouched coffee, wondering if I should fight, plead, or just nod. For a few seconds, I couldn't tell if she was breaking up with me or diagnosing me with something terminal. We'd been together 2 years, 2 steady, quiet years. No drama, no big fights, no spectacular moments either. It was like living in grayscale. Comfortable, predictable, maybe too predictable. I thought she liked that. I thought she wanted stability over chaos. Turns out stability felt like suffocation to her. I remember asking softly, "You don't want what exactly?" She sighed, eyes drifting toward the window like she was already somewhere else. "This life," she said. "The dinners, the plans, the small talk. I feel like I'm living someone else's dream." It hit me in fragments, not all at once. Because when someone says they don't want this, they're not rejecting the situation. They're rejecting you inside that situation. She gathered her purse, said she hoped we could still be friends, and walked out before I could even process the irony. Friends. As if I'd ever want to be a background character in the story where I used to be the lead. That night, I sat on my couch with the lights off, replaying every moment of our relationship like a movie I couldn't stop watching. Every time she smiled at her phone, every time she pulled away a little sooner when we hugged, every time I told myself she was just tired, I used to think love faded like sunlight, slowly, gently. But sometimes it goes out like a switch flipped in another room. The next morning, I did what people do when they're trying to seem okay. I went to work. I smiled, nodded, answered emails, even laughed when my coworker told a bad joke. But the silence inside me was louder than everything else. By evening, my phone buzzed with a message from her. A photo of the same cafe where she'd ended things, no caption. Maybe she meant it as a peace offering, or maybe it was guilt disguised as nostalgia. Either way, I didn't respond. Instead, I went for a walk around the city. The kind of walk where you're not going anywhere, just trying to find out what's left of yourself. Every corner, every streetlight felt like a memory we once had. I could almost hear her laugh echoing behind me. That same laugh that used to make ordinary moments feel like home. By the time I reached the river, my phone had gone silent again. No new messages, no calls, just the hum of the world moving on without me. That's when it really sank in. She wasn't coming back. And the worst part wasn't losing her. It was realizing I'd built so much of my life around someone who could walk away so easily. That night, I opened our old photos. The vacations, the dinners, the lazy Sundays. In every picture, I was smiling. She was too. But looking closer, I noticed something I'd missed before. She never looked at me. Always at the camera, always somewhere else. That's the thing about heartbreak. The truth is always there. It just waits for silence to reveal itself. I closed the album, deleted the photos, and sat there in the dark again. But this time I didn't feel hollow. I felt empty, yes, but also clear. Because maybe she was right. Maybe this wasn't what she wanted. But maybe I didn't know what I wanted either. And somewhere in that emptiness, a thought began to form. Quiet, calm, and certain. The kind of thought that changes everything. The next morning, I woke up to the same gray light spilling through the blinds. The kind of light that doesn't care if it's shining on something broken or whole. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, thinking about her words. "I don't want this with you." The more I repeated it, the less it sounded like rejection and more like release. Maybe we'd both been pretending, her pretending she still felt something, and me pretending I couldn't see she didn't. I brewed my coffee, sat by the window, and started typing a message I knew I wouldn't send. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an argument. It was just everything I'd wanted to say but never did. Halfway through, I stopped, because suddenly I realized I didn't owe her words anymore. I owed them to myself. So I got dressed and went back to that same cafe. The same table. The same empty chair across from mine. It wasn't to relive the moment. It was to reclaim it. I ordered black coffee, no sugar this time. And as I stirred nothing into it, I thought about all the sweetness I'd been adding to things that were never meant to be sweet. That's when I saw her, across the street. Emma. She was with someone, a guy I didn't recognize, laughing the way she used to laugh with me, and for a second my chest tightened, not from jealousy but from the strange realization that I didn't feel shattered anymore. Just distant. When our eyes met briefly, she froze, then gave me a small, polite smile, the kind you give to someone who once mattered but not enough to cross the street for. And that was it. No grand confrontation, no cinematic closure, just two people who used to be everything, now reduced to a quiet nod. I finished my coffee and walked out. The air felt lighter than it had in days. That evening, I sat down and finally replied to the message she'd sent. That photo from the cafe. This time, my response was only 4 words: I don't want this. No explanation, no punctuation, just clarity. Not revenge, not bitterness. Just truth. Because I didn't want this anymore. The waiting, the guessing, the half-hearted love, the trying to convince someone to stay. I didn't want a relationship that felt like walking on glass just to hear silence on the other side. I wanted peace. And for the first time, I realized peace doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting go without needing to understand why. Later that night, I went through the apartment and quietly removed the traces of her. The sweater she left on the chair, the mug she liked, the toothbrush she forgot, not out of anger, out of gratitude. Because sometimes the things we lose make space for what we should have had all along. I didn't block her number. I didn't delete our old texts. I didn't have to. They didn't hold any power anymore. Weeks passed. My routines came back. Work, gym, dinners with friends. But something had changed. I wasn't waiting for anything. Not closure, not her, not another version of the same story. One night, a friend asked if I'd ever talk to her again. I thought about it and said maybe someday, but not as the person she left. As the person I've become. He nodded quietly and I realized that was the real ending. Not the breakup, not the message. The real ending was the beginning of self-respect. Because love isn't supposed to feel like guessing if you're enough. It's supposed to feel like home. And if someone walks out of that home, maybe they were never meant to stay. I still pass by that cafe sometimes. Different people sit where we once did. They talk, they laugh, they probably think they'll last forever. And I hope they do. But me, I don't crave forever anymore. I crave peace, purpose, and honesty, even if it means walking alone. She once said, I don't want this with you. And the truth is, neither did I. Not anymore.